Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project. And as always, I have a fascinating guest with me today, and we're going to learn a lot about nutrition and about how we're never going to diet again, but we can always still be slender for life. Her name is Dr. Ginny Trierweiler. She is, did I say it right?
That's very good. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you. And Jenny is a psychologist, an author, certified coach, president and principal of Slender for Good, and the author of the book titled Slender for Good After 50. Eat more, stress less, and never diet again. Boy, we all want a little bit more of that, don't we?
Hmm.
Jenny had a wake up call in her 50s when she began struggling with her weight as well as inflammation in her body. This set her on a journey of research and discovering how to nourish the body and activate health and healing from within. Jenny, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Cheryl. I love your program. I love your mission, FemiNinja. It's so awesome.
Well, thank you. I just kind of fell into that, and it is based on my experience as a martial artist, which is a really crazy story how I started training in an ancient Japanese martial art at the tender young age of 47, and I did not go
Wow.
willingly. Yeah, they basically
Wow.
had to drag me onto the mat kicking and screaming, and not in a good way. So, really funny story. It's a great story. There's the book in the background, The Reluctant
Yeah.
Ninja, kind of
Yeah.
shares it
Oh,
all.
that's
But
so good.
well, I love what you're doing
Thank
because you
you.
are empowering women,
Yeah.
especially women over 40, how
Yeah.
to be able to take charge of their life, their health, their weight,
Yeah.
and to be slim, slender, and healthy for the rest of their lives. And
Yeah.
you really put the research and the work into it.
Yeah. Somebody was asking me today, how did you know how to find the answers when everybody's looking for these answers every day? And, part of what happened is I was reading, like all the smart people I know, I was reading labels, I was reading books, I was reading articles, and it just wasn't leading me to something that was super clear. And because I'm trained in evidence-based practices as a scientist, I suddenly realized you are not that clear how this works.
Mhm.
If you were to ask to write it down in a manual, what are the guidelines for how to eat? You would write down a whole bunch of tips. That isn't
Mhm.
how anything works, right? So we're out there looking for the latest tip and the latest hack every day. That's not how things work. We need some kind of clarity about this is how I eat. There's like 4 guiding principles. I just do that every day and make sure
Mhm.
that I get plenty of nutritious food. And, it means you get to lose a whole bunch of excess weight and quit storing excess fat and eliminate lots of problems with inflammation and metabolic issues. Like we are not meant to be living with these metabolic issues that we're living with. It's just not okay.
No, it is not okay. And I'd really love for you to share with the listeners, kind of when you had that, I call them mental head smacking moments, when
Yeah,
you realized that if you were stayed on the same trajectory that you were on, you
yeah.
possibly could be in a nursing home by the time you were in your 60s.
Yes, you're gonna make me cry. Like I
Oh,
still get emotional about this because I had been, I'm smart. I have a PhD. I was reading lots and lots of stuff. I felt like I figured out healthy eating and I just wasn't getting good results. And I had gotten to the point where I was 60 pounds overweight. I wasn't willing to date anymore. It was affecting how I was showing up, right? I also was pre-diabetic. And I just felt like, but I love the way I eat and drink, and I think it's pretty healthy. So why isn't anything working? And I had this moment, this wake up call where I started working as a psychologist in nursing homes.
mhm.
And my patients were all coming to me saying, Ginny, you got to get me out of here. My kids are taking my car, they're taking my house, they're selling all my stuff. I don't have anything that I worked for my whole life anymore. And they weren't that much older than me. So I started looking into, well, what are their conditions and how do I help them turn them around? And I didn't help anybody turn those conditions around because they had all passed a threshold by the time they got into a nursing home. So it was heartbreaking. And the thing is, I thought, you aren't that different from these people. You thought they were all going to be in their 80s and 90s. They're
Right.
not. A lot of them are in their 60s and 70s. And I was 55 at the time. And I thought, Honestly, Jenny, that's where you're headed. I could barely walk
Uh-huh.
because I had such a chronic inflammation condition. My feet were so inflamed. I
Oh.
really couldn't go for a walk for fun anymore. And I just felt like I am headed downhill fast, right?
Mm.
I've got to figure this out. And I didn't have anyone to guide me because most of what you find out in the marketplace is not very true or effective. It's kind of what we want to hear. That's why we buy it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, I've got to figure this out. I just feel like crying when I think about it. And I'm going to end up in a nursing home if I don't. And I don't know if I'm already past the threshold too. And I don't have anyone to guide me. So I was crying a lot at the beginning, like just
Mm.
really scared, but searching the research. But the benefit that I had is I had this training and background in evidence-based practices. So instead of looking for how do I put 300 tips together, I was looking for like a handful of guiding principles.
Mm-hmm.
And that started coming through pretty clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really found 4 guiding principles that the research that hundreds of articles suggested should lead to these results of improving the inflammation issues, improving my metabolism, getting the weight loss, maybe even eliminating the pain and inflammation. Yeah, so it did all that. Like I had lived with pain and inflammation since high school that had just gotten worse and worse. Yeah. I was taking more and more medications for
Oh,
these inflammatory conditions and the pain conditions. And it
wow.
really just all went away when I started following these principles that I found. So that also makes me want to cry because this is not actually hard. It's just
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard to find the right answers in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. To me, I don't mean to sound like a conspiracy theorist, because I'm not, and I don't mind sounding like a suspicious person because I am. But it's almost like we're intentionally been guided down the wrong path, and it's almost like there's this predatory feel
Mm,
to it, like predatory
mm.
marketing, predatory
There is.
guidance. It's
Yes.
like it's very, very insidious, but
Yeah.
when your eyes are open to it, you see it all around you.
Exactly. Yeah, some of my clients were talking about that today in our mastery group meeting that you just can't not see it anymore once you see
Right.
it. And it is kind of predatory because because the profit incentives are all towards eating the processed foods. And the
Mhm.
evidence is really strong that our bodies are not tolerating these processed foods.
Mm.
But we've all learned to call them treats and say it's fine to just have a little, let's moderate everything, but they're making them as addictive as possible. So trying to moderate something that's bad
Mhm.
for you that's also addictive is a failed approach that everybody's fighting with and trying really hard to do. It makes me mad.
Well, even some of the things that are supposed to be, they're promoted as health foods, or some of the,
Absolutely.
these wonderful protein bars and stuff. Take one of
Yes.
these with your workout, and you're going to be so
Right.
good. You're going to be
Yeah.
Superman or Superwoman, and then you turn it over and you read what's in it, and it's like, oh my God,
It's a candy bar. I know.
yeah.
I loved those things. Like I looked at the packaging. I looked for the lowest sugar one and the, dark chocolate and sea salt. Well, those are good things. Like I felt like I was eating health food and I loved them. They were very
Mhm.
enjoyable. And as I started looking at the research, there's nothing in the research that says these are good for us. It's the food
Mhm.
industry telling us these are good for
Mhm.
us.
Mhm. It's
Mhm.
really interesting. I was actually in my early 20s. I moved to Denver right before I turned 21 after I graduated
Mm,
college. And of course, completely on my own. Have a medical air quotes background. Of course, it was
yeah.
cardiopulmonary. I knew that stuff, but we knew nothing
Yeah.
about nutrition because it wasn't in our
Right.
program. And
Right.
I didn't understand why I was getting so heavy. So
Yes.
overweight, so sluggish. I was playing tennis, I would go jogging, which I absolutely hated.
Yeah.
But I would do it and it was like, what's happening here? And when I look back at what I was eating, some of the things that
Mm-hmm.
were, promoted as healthy and,
Yes.
really good for you, that was nothing but sugar. And God only knows
Yes.
what other stuff was in it to preserve
Right.
those wonderful dried fruits that I thought were wonderful for me. Ooh.
Yeah, I know.
But you
Well,
don't know what you don't know.
almost everything that's packaged as this is healthy for you and this has antioxidant. It's almost proof that it's not. is how I see it now. Like real food doesn't have that packaging. It doesn't have that marketing on it.
That's a really good point. I never see that when I'm picking out my kale.
Right?
Never see that, hey, health food. It's like I kind of know that by now that it is. But it also kind of now this really breaks my heart that makes me want to cry that it all comes down to like four basic guiding principles. And
Yes.
we run around like, just crazy people trying to find the answer. And, I can remember going to the bookstore, going to the, health foods area.
Yeah.
And it's like all of these books on
Yes.
healthy eating, nutrition, cookbooks, and nothing really was very effective. And
Nothing is very
everybody,
effective.
and
Yeah.
every book said something different.
I know. It's very frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
it keeps us in this perpetual seeking mode. And I was thinking about this, how in any endeavor, like perpetually seeking different answers all the time, that isn't a way to get results. Like in science, you do that, right? But if you're trying to follow some kind of plan, like you're building a house or you're learning to train your dog or, whatever you're trying to build skills in, like if you're trying to build healthy eating skills, you need to be clear what they are.
mm-hmm.
And my skill is I'm going to look for the latest tip every day is not going to help. It's not a good skill.
So then what you did this research
Yeah.
and did it just boggle your mind that it was basically so simple? I mean, the answer is simple. Maybe not the
Yeah.
research and the journey,
Yeah.
but just these four guiding principles. If you follow that, and
Yeah.
how did you feel when the weight started coming off and the
Mm-hmm.
inflammation? What was that like? Was it, because I'm sure with the inflammation, that must have been a process. It didn't
It
happen
was
overnight.
it was all a process. Insomnia went away, like every trouble that I had been living with, hot flashes, everything resolved. And to tell you the truth, I never thought I was going to teach this to anybody. I was just trying to live a healthier life. I wanted to reverse pre-diabetes if that was possible, or at least not end up with diabetes. So all those things resolved. So the first thing I remember stopping is crying about it, like getting up every day and going, I gotta eat healthy again, and I don't know how, and nobody's helping me. Like that's the first thing that stopped because I started realizing, this actually is not suffering. I'm actually enjoying eating this way. I'm figuring it out. It's not that hard. And I'm starting to get results going the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
I started getting a little more energy. I started getting more mental clarity. That's one of the first things a lot of us notice is I'm just handling stuff better.
Mm.
That really helps. But yeah, changing from being insomniac all the time to no insomnia anymore, that was a bit of a process, right?
Wow.
The pain and inflammation going away was a process. So I didn't write down how fast these things happened, to tell you the truth. I just was fighting my way out of a hole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you remember, because especially the pain in your feet, because I find that very,
Yes.
compelling because
Compelling.
when
Yeah.
your feet hurt, everything
Yeah.
hurts. You just
Yes.
can't walk. I remember as a respiratory
Yes.
therapist, I was working in a local hospital. And one of the nurses, and she was working in the intensive care unit, and well, she was older. She was, like
Yeah.
maybe 40. It was back
Oh.
in the day when I was 20-ish.
Right.
So she was older. And watching her walk I would hurt because,
Yes.
her feet were so painful, and she eventually
Yes.
did have surgery on both feet. I don't know what the end results were, but just watching
Yeah.
her try and get through an 8-hour shift, and an 8-hour shift isn't
Oh.
that long, but it was
Oh.
just so painful. I always felt so bad because when
Yeah.
your feet hurt, you can't do anything.
Right. And I did schedule surgery twice for my
Wow.
feet. Yeah. And canceled. One thing when you start working in nursing homes, when you ask family members, when did you ever notice it starting at a particular moment? They would often say, yeah, she had a surgery and she never really quite came back from the anesthesia. I started thinking, I wonder if there's a way out of this without surgery. And
Mhm.
what if changing my eating could really change all this? Yeah. So It was huge. Being able to start just going for a walk again is something I
Right.
always valued so much for both, mental health and physical health and relaxation, etc. And I lived in Denver area and I loved hiking in the mountains. Well, that was behind me and I was able
Mhm.
to do that again. So
Oh.
yeah, it
So
was
what did it
huge.
I just gotta ask, what did it feel like, more like emotionally, psychologically,
Mhm.
when you were able to get back up into the mountains and do a
Yeah.
hike?
Yeah, I mean, it just makes me want to cry. One thing, as I see my clients go through this, I see them become more alive. And
Mhm.
I feel like that's what I went through is becoming more alive. Like when you're giving your body the food it needs, it is so grateful. It is like,
Mhm.
thank you. Like now we can do what we're supposed to do instead of
Mhm.
fighting the crap that you're putting into our body every day. Instead
Mhm.
of, I started understanding that we're causing harm to our cells. The
Mhm.
metabolic processes in our cells, we're causing inflammation, we're causing glycation. There's all these processes that are really not going well when we're eating processed food, which is now, I don't know how many people know this, but it's 73% of our diet is processed food.
Really?
That's in the United States and that's in the UK as well. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So now I want to know
Yeah.
because I'm very meticulous about, shopping and,
Yeah. Yeah.
what I'm cooking and all that stuff. So I have been going for, of course, more the whole foods, and I
Yeah.
said kale. I actually grow my own kale right now. It's probably
Wow.
just another week or two and it'll be gone, but I can still get
Yeah.
the organic kale at the grocery store. And
Yes.
I'm always looking for the, single ingredient this that there's
Yes.
nothing else in it.
Right. Yeah.
And some of the people who, some of the listeners might be going, well, that doesn't sound very exciting. And when I
Yes.
first started eating kale, and I don't even know why I did it, but oh, I
It's a
know why.
superfood.
Well, it is a superfood, and I always knew that, but I never ate it.
Yeah.
But it was actually a woman in her early 70s, and she was
Oh.
taking ballet classes with me. So,
Oh. Yeah.
that's how I met her. She was actually French, and she would talk, and she says, "I feel like a little girl again. I just feel like a little girl. I have so much fun, and I have so much energy, and blah blah blah."
Oh.
And that she was a vegetarian, and she told me
Uh,
about this kale salad, and I
uh-huh.
was like, "This really sounds disgusting." And she said, "No, it's you fresh kale, and you just tear it, and you put sea salt and lemon juice." And the
Mhm.
way she said massage,
Massage it. Yeah.
massage an avocado.
Oh,
And I'm like,
yum.
okay, avocados are okay. Not sure about the kale, but what the heck? I'm an adventurer, so I tried
Uh-huh.
it. I ate the entire bowl.
It was so good.
It was
Yeah.
so good. I ate an entire thing of kale in one sitting. But it was so
So I
tasty.
know there's people listening going, I don't like kale. So here's something that I have learned is many things I said I didn't like. Once I found a way to prepare them, I fell in love with them. Not everything, and you don't have to eat things you don't like, but try stuff different ways. I
Mhm,
started going to restaurants. Okay, try if they had a lot of salads, try some you haven't tried before and see what you like about it and make a note and do it at home. And
mhm,
yeah. So
mhm.
kale was one of those. Yeah.
I actually, put the recipe on my blog.
Oh,
I have a little section called Cheryl's Kitchen, and I call it
oh,
my Hallelujah Kale Salad
oh,
because,
nice.
like,
Yeah.
hallelujah, kale is good. And that's what I usually have for breakfast every morning. I started
Wow.
seeing, a naturopath a few years ago. I haven't seen her
Yeah.
for a while now. I probably ought to go back. But I was starting to eat a little bit healthier, being a little bit more aware about what I was eating.
Mm-hmm.
And I says, I'm eating a salad for breakfast every morning with kale, spinach, fresh
Wow.
vegetables. I said, I figured the first time I did it, I figured, oh my gosh, I'm going to be starving half to death by 10 o'clock and want something. I said, I
Mm.
wasn't hungry for the rest of the day. It wasn't until like mid
Wow.
afternoon I had to have a snack. And she said, when
Wow.
you're eating food that is so nutritionally dense, you don't
Yeah,
get hungry because your
it's
body
true.
is happy, it's satisfied, it's getting what it wants and needs.
I think that's so true. Yeah, when our bodies are getting what they need. Now, in my plan, we eat quite an abundance of those kinds of foods. of nutritious foods. So we don't try to just have a little. That's one thing. If people are used to, well, I can't just have a salad. It's partly because it's tiny. What you're used to eating for a salad is tiny. We're eating a giant plate. We always have protein and a bit of fat too.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. You need the fat to
Yeah.
keep the body revving. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, let me see, where are we going here? I mean, I'm still blown away. Just, I get mad when I
Yeah.
think about how we're misled, and especially as
Yes.
women. And then you hear the things of, oh, well, menopause, you're going to get the
Right.
menopause, little pooch,
Right.
and
Yeah.
well, of course you're going to start shrinking, your spine is going to start shrinking, but that's okay. It's nature, it's natural.
Yeah.
Normal
Yeah.
aging, which I hate that expression. All of
Yeah.
these things that you cannot do. Oh, yeah, your bones are going to get really brittle, so be very
Yeah.
careful. Take maybe this medication to build up your bones.
Yes.
There are so many other ways of doing it.
Oh, I need help with that. Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh,
Well,
that's,
yeah, I
but
know. I need to talk to you.
yeah, but I mean, it starts with what you're talking about, just with the nutrients and
It
everything.
absolutely does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just not true that we have to gain weight in menopause. It's normal in only the statistical sense. Like
Mm,
throughout human history, it's not that people gained weight during this time. It's the way we're eating added to what happens with our
mm-hmm,
estrogen.
mm-hmm.
If we don't eat this way, we don't have to have those results.
So, since you mentioned estrogen, could you give us a little bit of a glimpse of what happens if I sit down and I have a Happy Meal? Not that I've ever had one in my
Mm.
life, or
Mm-hmm.
I would eat one, but I'm eating a Happy Meal. And what happens to, in the bloodstream? I mean, what's happening
Yeah.
internally? What's going on? How does my body react to that?
Yeah, this is not my expertise, but I've been studying a lot to
Right.
understand why are we getting so much great results and most weight loss approaches aren't.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's various things happening. One is we're causing damage to our cells in about 8 different ways. So we're causing systemic inflammation. We're causing glycation. We're causing oxidation. So people know about that because it's related to cancer.
Mm-hmm.
We're also causing blood sugar spikes, right? And our bodies, every time we get an excess blood sugar spike, which might be happening for many people every day, might be happening several times every day if they're eating the typical Western diet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those blood sugar spikes, every time our body has to cope with something excessive that just happened. So all the things it should be doing, like, regeneration and fighting cancer cells, which are in there every day, it doesn't have time to do any of that. It has to deal with, oh, you just put poison in here again, and now I have to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the simple way I think about it. The other thing is, if 73% of our food is non-nutritious food-like substances, that means only 27% of what we're eating is actually nutritious food. And so scientists talk about it's like we flip a switch in our body, like a bear getting ready to hibernate. So
Uh-huh.
we start getting higher blood pressure, higher blood sugar. We start storing excess fat. We start getting extra hungry. So it changes our hunger hormones. And we start getting extra cortisol in our system. So we get anxious and sleepless and driven. So here we are, anxious, sleepless, driven, hungry, and storing excess fat. And our body's saying, I still didn't get enough nutrition. Go find more food. So
Mm-hmm.
this is one reason people, when they're dieting, feel like, oh, this is so hard. This is so miserable. It's absolutely unsustainable to take that situation and now just try to eat less.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the answer. The
Right.
answer is to eat more of the
Mm-hmm.
nutritious foods, a
Mm-hmm.
lot more.
I love that phrase. No, I really don't love it. I kind of hate it. But that phrase, food like substance.
Yeah, it helps
When you,
me. I used to call them treats.
ooh, yeah.
That
So
did
the
not
next,
help me.
yeah. So just maybe the next time you go into the pantry because you need a treat, think about it as a food like substance. And I don't think any
Yeah.
one of us need that.
Right. But you do, I actually start with eat more nutritious foods, like a lot more at every
Mm-hmm.
meal. because to say no to the things that you're used to that are so convenient when you're hungry and you're anxious and you're tired, yeah. How are you going to do that? You're just in a willpower state that's, going to let you down. So
Well,
start with eating more nutritious foods.
tell us what some of your favorite nutritious foods are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it just run through my day today. So I started with steel cut oats. So that's usually my breakfast, and then either milk or plant milk. And I put peanut butter and or nuts in that to get some good protein and fat in there. And I eat quite a bit of fruit in the morning. So I have berries. Yeah. So that actually really holds me very well for 4 or 5 hours. And then at lunch, I usually have like could be some cooked vegetables, but a giant plate of cooked vegetables. And then some kind of protein. It might be meat, it might be eggs, various options. And then at dinner, I like to have a giant salad. And I have figured out, it took me a little while, it's part of why I was crying. I have figured out how to make a giant salad delicious and interesting every single day, right? And I usually add, my thing is to add nowadays feta cheese and some, what do you call those seeds?
Chias?
Pepitas.
Oh, the pepitas. I grind those up every morning and put them. That was one of the things that I learned from my naturopath to, like have a little coffee grinder.
Yeah.
So you put a tablespoon of the pepitas in that, you grind them up, and then, you put it with whatever it is that you're eating. So I always, put it on top of my kale. My husband thinks I'm insane, but, I like it. And she says that, they're so nutritious, but you need to get like the it's not a hard shell, but you need to get to the, inside. So that's
Oh,
why grinding
oh,
it is a lot more effective. So yeah, those are
uh-huh.
really great.
For most foods, we don't want to grind them because we're processing them to make them more palatable, and it concentrates the sugars more. But I'm not sure that's always true with beans and nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
It may be that we can grind those without breaking down the
Yeah.
beneficial stuff. So our bodies do need a lot more fiber than they're getting. And if we can eat the foods most of the time with the fiber lattice intact, it makes it possible for our body to really get the benefit of the nutrition in there, the nutrients.
I have another question about the oats because, every
Yeah,
now and again I would have oatmeal for breakfast or steel cut. I love steel cut oats.
yeah,
And one of my guests from, probably over 100 episodes ago, was into nutrition, but not quite as scientifically based. But she says,
yeah.
that when people eat things like oatmeal or oats, they think, oh, they're doing something really good because it's really healthy for you. And I thought that it was. And she said, but what it does, it really kind of spikes your blood sugar or some kind of glycemic. I can't remember
Right,
how
the
to say it.
glycemic index.
Yeah.
So the glycemic index has some merit for us. So this is why I just did a YouTube video on metabolism hacks, because we do care how much we're spiking our blood sugar. And if you're eating a lot of high glycemic index foods, you could be spiking it too much. But I find we benefit from having a whole grain every day. This was actually the last thing I figured out.
Okay.
It was the last 15 pounds that came off when I figured this part out. Yeah. So you know how there's all these ideas about what are we supposed to do about grains? Are we supposed to be low gluten or no gluten? Are we supposed to be grain free? I was struggling with it. But I finally realized I think we do best if we have one whole grain a day. And there's a pretty good research into this. So that's a whole grain. What I find is as long as you're having it with a protein, and you're having it with fruit, not broken down fruit, not juice, but like with the fiber lattice intact, we are not getting blood sugar spikes from eating that. But I know a lot of people talk about oatmeal as a problem. When I worked in the nursing home, there were a lot of people with diabetes who were avoiding fruit. Yeah, and they were avoiding oatmeal because of these ideas about the glycemic index, but they were eating ice cream at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And they were always eating bread at their meals. And bread is a broken down it's made out of flour, it's broken down. So they were not doing their diabetes any favors. I mean,
Mm,
basically, the way they feed people in nursing homes is like just killing them
mhm,
slowly. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, I've done time in a
Yeah.
nursing home
Oh,
and,
have you?
subacute
Yes.
facilities. Yeah, I've worked
Yeah.
pretty much everything from acute care, intensive care,
Yeah.
all the way to long-term care. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I'm not doing it anymore. And I'm just having a podcast.
Right. Yeah. It's hard to feel like you can really help people in those
Yeah,
places.
and
Yeah.
that gets really, really frustrating. That's another reason why I opened my own practice when I got my master's
Yeah.
in PT, because was
Yeah.
I did traditional PT for about 2 years, and I'm like, this is killing me. I can't do this. We're really not helping people. It's a
Right.
conveyor belt. So
Right.
it was sitting through a gut-wrenchingly boring meeting at work one day. And when I finally got, another one of those mental head smacking moments, it's like, wait a minute, you can go out on your own. And
Yes. I
I'd gone
know.
yeah, well, like, what a concept, and I had already gone
Yeah.
through 2 professional, Pilates training programs after I
Oh, I
graduated
love
school.
Pilates.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so great. So I started
Yeah.
my practice doing, Pilates-based rehabilitation and conditioning, and it
Oh, nice.
yep, then I
Yeah.
added Feldenkrais to it. I became a Feldenkrais
Yeah.
practitioner, and it was just
Wow.
lovely because it was I could give individuals what they individually needed, not putting them through the conveyor
Yes.
belt system that we were doing.
Yes. Yeah, we have such a similar background in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I went through my own weight, little
Oh,
challenge and
really?
stuff. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
How did you get out of it?
Oh, it's just okay. Well, it was actually really kind of funny in a sad sort of way. But
Mm,
I had just finished graduate school, so I was 40 years
yeah.
old.
Yeah.
Just got my
Yeah.
my master's in PT, and I was probably, I was definitely overweight for me, especially because I'm small, boned,
Mm,
and I just could not lose the weight. I couldn't figure it out, and I'm an intelligent person. Why can't I figure this out? And it's
right.
really funny because there was a young man. I was working at a rehab center, acute
Mm,
rehab, and there was a young man who was a physical therapist, but as well as a personal trainer. So he wanted to take me on as his own little personal project, and he was going to,
wow.
help me. And I thought, well, that's really nice. And I was
Nice.
desperate. Yeah. So he started telling me what we're going to do. And he says, and by the way, if you're going to lose weight, you just have to eat a lot more.
Yes. I love that. So
Well,
true.
that's my response was
Yeah.
I looked at him and I said, I'm just going out on a limb here, but I'm
Yeah.
kind of guessing you've never been a woman over 40. I thought it was hilarious, but he didn't think it was so funny, so we just kind of parted ways, and I just
Oh,
started paying atten instead, I started paying attention to what I was
yeah.
eating and got rid of, like, we used to eat pizza a couple of times a week,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, what am I doing?" So it's like, if I could cut out just pizza,
Yeah.
bread, and cheese, let's
Yeah.
see what
Okay.
happens, and just do, like, lean
Yes.
protein and some green stuff. And I ended up losing 15 pounds in
Yeah.
maybe like 3 or 4 months. But the funniest thing was, first was 3 pounds came off really quickly. And it
Yeah.
was at the same time I, went in for my yearly GYN.
Mm.
And she comes in looking at my chart and she's like, "Oh, you lost 3 pounds." And I'm going, "Well, it's not that big of a deal. It's only 3 pounds." And then my ballet master noticed. He says, "You've lost weight." And I said,
Wow.
"Only 3 pounds." And he says, "I can see it in your hips." And that's what every woman
Wow.
wants to hear. It's like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
off and
I'm
running. I'm
gonna
going to
keep
keep
doing this.
you betcha.
Yeah.
But that goes to show you how sick the world of ballet is. He noticed 3 pounds.
That's true. That is a sick world.
Yes. So I just kept on going and kept on going, and slowly, people would notice when, I hit the 5 pound mark, and my husband never noticed and never said anything. So I was like, I want to see if he even notices. Everybody around me was noticing.
Wow.
Eventually, it was a total of 10 pounds. He never said a word. Finally, I lost 15 pounds and I was at my ideal weight. I felt great. And I was like, and my
Uh-huh.
husband still never said a word. So I was getting ready for work one day and I went running through the kitchen and I reached up. I was in my bra and panties and I reached up to get a coffee mug out of the cabinet. And he looked and he did a double take. And he said, "Oh my god, you're buff. Have you been working out?"
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I said, "Mike, I lost 15 pounds." And he said, "No, you didn't." And I said, "Yes, I did." And he says, "Well, you didn't need to. You look really good." I'm like, "Oh my God." I d I told our eye doctor that story one time, and he just paused, and he looked at me, and he said, "Does he realize you're a redhead?" And I said, "Yes." And he says, "Okay, then I won't worry about his vision."
How funny.
Isn't
Yeah.
that hilarious? He just did not
Yes.
notice. Everybody else did, but he didn't.
I think it's amazing that it was bread and cheese, particularly because that was sort of my nightly dinner was bread and
Mm.
cheese and wine and dark chocolate. And it was
Oh,
like
these are a few
so
of my favorite things.
right. And I was like, but I don't want to lose these things. That's partly why I was crying. It's like, you know what? Maybe you have to be willing to let go of certain things to learn what really makes a difference. And maybe
Mhm.
these things are not serving you, right? And yeah, bread and cheese, it seemed wholesome.
Well, actually, my mother years ago, and I think when she had the kids out, the grandkids out or whatever, and she was talking to like a dietitian, and she says, "Well, I'm taking them out for pizza, and it's just junk food. Pizza's just junk food." And the dietitian said, "Oh no, it's actually really good because it's got your carbs, it's got your
Yeah,
vegetables, it's
right.
got your milk product, it's got so it's like, oh, pizza's good for you, okay."
Yeah. You know what I think, what I've concluded about when like doctors don't get very much nutrition education, a
Oh,
lot of them
no.
don't get any. Dietitians do, but from what I can tell, the food industry pays for endowed chairs in the medical schools and in the dietitian schools. So when they are promoting ideas like that to us, it's because the food industry underwrote what they're teaching us, what they learned.
Mhm,
So I think they're giving us some really bad advice because they're also infiltrated, and so is the government has been very
mhm,
infiltrated. All the
mhm.
USDA, et cetera, is all led by the food industry. So it's hard to find good answers out there. I feel it's virtually impossible. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's
it's
not
like
hard to do what works. It's hard to know what actually works.
exactly, exactly, because
Yeah.
it's like we're being sabotaged at every turn.
Yes.
And I've
Yeah.
talked to a lot of people on my show who have done what you did, doing the research and the due diligence.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's when you figure out, oh, this is how metabolism really does work.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
brings me to another point I wanted to make because you mentioned metabolism earlier, and that you had just posted recently, I think, on your YouTube channel about
Yeah.
metabolism. You have a fantastic YouTube channel. That is
Oh,
a
thank you.
wealth of information.
Thank you.
So, just so for all of those of
Yes.
you who are listening out there, do go to Jenny's YouTube channel, check it out. The link is in the show notes. Subscribe to her channel. You can learn an awful lot.
Yeah,
And
Slender
in
for
this,
Good is the YouTube channel. And I've had people let me know. I watched all your videos. I changed how I'm eating and I lost the last 30 pounds I was trying to lose. Yeah.
okay,
I
now
mean,
does that make you cry?
right? Yeah. Yes. It's so touching. My experience is I'm an expert as a psychologist. I'm an expert in habit change. How do people
Mhm,
change entrenched habits like eating? So
mhm,
I found this formula that works, and then I help people change their eating habits, which is just, it's a little bit of a bigger deal than just here, I'm going to read a book and I'm going to suddenly change all my
mhm,
eating habits tomorrow for the rest of my life. It's just a little bigger deal than that, but it doesn't have to be hard.
mhm,
So most people are going to need more support than just watching all my free stuff, but
mhm,
it'll definitely give you an idea. Oh, I love the way she talks about this, or I hate the way she talks about this. I just need to eat less,
mhm. And
which is
no,
just not what I believe, not
you
what I
get to
found.
eat more.
Get to eat more. Yeah.
That's I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget this. The entrenched habits of eating, this starts at a very young age and how we were raised and how we grew up. And of course, I
Yes.
grew up in the era of you clean your plate.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't have that rule, but I do, but when I look back, every time I had money, I would walk to the candy store and it was like very special
Mm-hmm.
homemade candy.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I definitely became addicted to sugar when I was
Mm-hmm.
young. And later, to be more sophisticated, I transferred that to wine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to have my sugar this way. Instead of dessert, I'm going to have another glass of wine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so much better.
Right. some people think it's healthy for you, a glass of red wine, but it's like,
That's
okay,
just that's
the
just
wine
not
industry.
true. Yeah. Yeah, the food, I can't remember how much the alcohol industry spends to convince us that that stuff is healthy, but the food industry in the United States spends at least $14 billion a year trying to convince us that the non-nutritious stuff is healthy. The most highly profitable, highly processed stuff that is seriously damaging. They're constantly putting out messages. It's wholesome. It's good for you. I always think about the Coca-Cola commercials,
Oh, yeah.
like to teach the world
Yeah.
to sing. It's just so lovely,
Oh,
right? We're
yeah.
all
And
getting
everybody's happy. They're
and
smiling.
healthy and
Yeah.
youthful. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
not being slowly poisoned.
Yeah, they aren't rotting from the inside out. And yeah. So I
Right.
know it is amazing. It is amazing how they manipulate us. But when you think about it, $14 billion a year, if you would take even a fraction of that to
Yeah.
educate people on how to be healthy,
Yes.
how
Yes.
to eat well, how to sustain, that health
Yeah.
and wellness and with, activities and physical movement. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
but
Well,
that
that's what I do. Like, I never imagined I would help people with weight loss, and it's
Mhm.
slightly embarrassing to me, actually. Like, as a psychologist, that's not what I was studying to
Right.
do. But finding the answers is so difficult, and then getting
Mhm.
support for changing your eating habits, I'm
Mhm.
like, I have to do this. Nobody else is doing this.
Well, see, I think that's a perfect marriage, for someone to do
Yeah.
it with that psychology background. And that really, really spoke to me when I was reading your bio because there's so much, psychological,
Yeah.
there's a lot wrapped up in food
There is a lot.
and
Yeah.
eating. And, I have a very
Yes.
close friend who is seriously anorexic. She had a near fatal
Oh.
heart attack,
Oh. Yeah.
and still doesn't think that food is that necessary. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of, and as a dancer, been in ballet classes
Oof.
for over
Yeah.
40 years and even, still to this day. And the messages that we are that we receive either
Yeah.
very, blatantly or subtly is, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, however you look, it's not good enough.
Right. Never good enough. Yeah.
Never good enough.
And even if you look good enough today, you probably won't tomorrow.
Right.
So keep punishing yourself, keep hurting yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you really, really want to be a ballerina, I'm a musician, so I would go to band camp and there would be the dancers next to us. And man, we were all like happy. They were all miserable.
Well, it's hard to be happy when you're not eating.
Yes. Yeah. So I love hearing from my clients, especially the ones who were really strict dieters their whole lives and felt
Mm,
like this is working for me. Everybody should do what I'm doing. And then it stopped working as they got older and they started getting gastrointestinal problems and,
mm.
they started getting health problems. When I told them how much they need to eat, they're like, you're really freaking me out here. But they decided to try it and they love it. It's like I
Mhm.
love food for the first time in my life where I always viewed it as dangerous, as my enemy, right?
Well, and it's really interesting once you do change your habits, especially if you were eating things that, the good stuff, the feel good or the
Yes.
the treats. Once you stop eating it and start eating the really nutritious, that's
Yeah.
what you crave.
Yeah. It
You
is
don't
what you crave.
crave the crap anymore.
Even your taste buds turn over in 2 weeks. And if you get the processed stuff off of your taste buds, then they start really enjoying the nutritious
Yeah.
foods. Yeah, it's true. Even your gut starts calling for the nutritious food instead
Mhm.
of the junk food. And it feels gorgeous. It feels
Mhm.
really good to be choosing that like on a daily basis. So I really feel like instead of 27% of our food being highly nutritious, we need to push towards 100%.
Yep.
So quit looking for excuses to hold on to the highly processed, non-nutritious stuff. Quit calling it a treat and start falling in love with real, whole, nutritious food.
Mhm.
Just find ways to thoroughly enjoy it and eat a lot of it.
I just have to ask you this because it was definitely, in the vault, even before we
Mhm.
began recording, that something I wanted to ask you about because it drives me crazy when I see these commercials on TV. The
Mm.
the diet programs that are delivered right to your door. The box is there. All you have
Yeah.
to do is open it, and all of this beautiful food. And
Yeah.
I mean, what's in that that it can?
Well, I have searched. I haven't found yet any of those that have an abundance of nutritious foods.
That's what I
But
figured.
that's partly because that's not what we're used to eating. We're not going to feel like we're getting the right stuff if they bring that to us.
Mm,
So I feel like in our community, we're starting to push towards demanding our community offer what we need, what people need to
mhm,
be eating. But it's going to take more of us
mhm,
demanding that, right? And there are people that I respect in this field who are saying we've got to get the government to step in because our healthcare system is breaking under the pressure
mhm,
of all the metabolic conditions that are caused by the way we're eating. It's just not going to hold up.
mhm,
So I think there is this whole society-wide thing that has to change. But
mhm,
in my community, we're just like, I'm going to eat healthy. I don't care what everyone else does. I'm going to eat
mhm,
in a kind of dramatically different, healthy way and just make it my habit. And just
mhm,
like, so the way we say it is, this is just how I eat. It's not a diet. This is just how I eat and I love it.
mhm,
I'm
mhm,
doing this the rest of my life. Like, why would I do anything else? Once you
mhm.
know, when we know better, we do better. I don't know if
Knowledge
I
is
answered your
power.
question. Yes.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to ask you, well, plus, just to make a comment, that once you do that and you change the way you eat and you are eating more of the most, beautiful foods that
Yeah.
we were meant to eat,
Right.
that
Right.
it's so empowering
It is really
because
empowering.
you are not at the mercy of the junk food.
Yeah.
And, it's almost like I feel
Right.
like, when I go through the produce section and I start, I didn't always buy organic before, but I sure do now. And it's
Yeah.
just like, okay. And I'm walking past the junk food going, ha, you know,
Look at me taking care of
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You don't have control over me anymore. Yeah.
Right. It's a very good feeling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like I was in charge. I didn't know who was putting all the food and drink into my mouth, but it didn't seem like it was me. Didn't seem like
Yeah.
I was making those choices. And that was feeling shameful to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I remember so many mornings I said, I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm just going to eat something healthy and go to bed and not like gorge like I do every night. But
Mm-hmm.
by the end of the day, I'd be going, yes, I am. I'll start this plan tomorrow, but I have to have the stuff. It made me feel like I don't know who's in charge here, but this
Mm-hmm.
doesn't feel like the me that I've always been proud of, the capable
Mm-hmm.
person. I want to get back to her. I feel like that was the biggest motivator, to tell you the truth. I want to respect myself again.
Mm. I did see in your video,
Mm,
um, the video pitch. It was you had 2 photos. You have the
yes,
you are now,
before and after.
and you had
Yeah.
the yeah, and it's a stunning transformation.
Isn't it? I mean, I talked about how,
Congratulations.
thank you. I can see in my clients how much more alive they get pretty
Mhm,
fast eating this way. I
mhm.
think you see that in those 2 pictures, like
Oh, yes.
from the the after picture is 10 years ago now, which is kind of amazing to me. But
Wow.
it was only a few years before that, the before picture, and I just looked so kind of dead. And I was trying to be attractive that day. So I
Mhm,
definitely looked 60 pounds heavier, but also like just not as alive. I don't know how to explain it.
mhm. Well, your skin absolutely loves good nutrition too. So when you're eating
Yes.
well, you can see it, not only just in your weight, but you can see it in your skin too.
And your eyes, I think there's
Mhm,
something, well, even the mental clarity that comes back, something comes more, I don't know, awake, alive.
mhm.
Yeah.
Vibrant.
Vibrant is a good word. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that
Yeah.
word. Okay,
Yeah.
so now what made you decide that you needed to write a book? Because writing a book is
Mm.
not for the weak, or the faint of heart.
Right. Well, why did I decide that? So a lot of people get on the phone with me and say, can you just give me your diet? And I
Mhm,
really wanted to get in the way of that because
mhm,
I actually spent like a year after I learned all this just trying to hand it to people. Like I would go to chorus practice and people would say, what did you do? And can you answer this in 1 minute? And I tried. I just kept trying to give a 1-minute answer that would change their lives. Or I wrote up the eating plan and I would hand it to people and they'd go, I'm not going to do that. And so I thought, well, okay, that's not actually how people change something as deep as eating. People need a bit more support, a bit more hand-holding, etc. So I've been doing that for 5 years and we're getting tremendous results. People are absolutely changing their lives and loving it. So I thought, can I reach more people if I write a book? And to do it in writing, it just forces me to get so clear. What am I saying, right? And organize it really well. So I really wanted that challenge. So I'm excited how it's coming out.
I'm really excited for you. I'm excited to read it.
Thank
And
you.
of
Yeah.
course, it's not published yet, but when it is, it's in the show notes, and I'll make sure that all the
Yes.
listeners have access to that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited about it. Thank you.
I tell you something that once you hold your first printed copy in your
Yeah.
hands,
Yeah. Yeah.
there are no words.
Yeah. It's a pretty
There
good
are no,
feeling. Yeah.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
there are no words.
I wrote a book about toddlers some years ago because I felt like toddlers are so much more capable and considerate when you let them do a lot for themselves. It's a Montessori kind of concept.
Mhm.
And yeah, it felt really good it's just, I had to write the book. There was no getting away from it. I had to write it. And that's kind of how I feel about this. I have to write this because there's a lot of people who are never going to come and join a coaching program to change their eating, but they will read and see, well, tell me how this works. And how many hearts and minds could I change with a book as opposed to this way?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
So
congratulations on the book too,
thank
because
you.
that is quite quite an undertaking and a
As you
challenge.
know,
Yes,
huh?
I
Yours
know.
look so awesome. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'm working on number 3, and I tell
Oh,
people it's like
nice.
coughing up a hairball. It's just, it's just, and even my editor's going, okay, what's the problem here? Because you weren't
Yeah.
having this much trouble with the first two, and she was right. But
Yeah.
it's coming together. I think it's this third one is a follow up on my ninja book,
Yeah.
and it's more about the a self help, the
Yes.
philosophies, the principles, the mindset, the attitude, the behaviors, all of the things that I learned in over 20
Yes.
years of practicing this ancient Japanese martial art, that I
Yeah.
know a lot of women would love to have this information. They would love to
Yeah.
be able to learn it, but they might not want to spend 20 minutes or 20 years in a smelly dojo with a bunch of sweaty men the way I did. So, and I totally understand that. So,
Right.
my tagline is I took the hits so you don't have to. But
Oh, that's
and I
so
think it's because
good.
I just so want to be so clear in my message, and I feel so
Yes.
responsible of making sure that I'm giving, you
Yes.
know, women what they need, just like you.
Yes. Well, my second book is going to be called Crave the Good because
Ooh,
I know how to help people crave the good foods. But I bet that'll be harder to write than the one I'm writing now because that is, yeah, 35 years of psychology studies and practice uh,
right?
distilled for people. Like this is totally doable. Let me
Yeah,
guide you through it. We do it in our program, but yeah, the book could be challenging.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me know, and we can
Yeah.
commiserate, or at least
Okay.
maybe
Yes.
we'll encourage each other along
Yes.
the
Thank
way.
you. Yes.
So, Jenny, where can people find you? How could they get a hold of you? How can they learn more about your program and connect with you, hire you,
Yeah.
whatever?
Yeah. Well, they could go to slenderforgood.com. That will really describe what we do.
Mhm.
It'll have right now I have a free video that explains why dieting doesn't work and
Mhm.
everyone should stop dieting. I don't know when this comes out, if that's what will be the freebie, but that's what's on there now. But that's
Okay.
a good way to get in touch with me. People can reach out to me at drginnyt@gmail.com.
Mhm.
I am passionate about this, especially for women over 50. Like we do not have to suffer with these metabolic issues.
Yeah.
And it's wasting our time and energy. We are really needed in our communities. And if we're spending all our time worrying about our eating and our weight, we don't have the energy for what we ought to be doing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And not only that, if we're worrying about it, we're actually not doing our body any good because
We're
there's
not
that
doing our body any
stress and the
good.
stress hormones and yeah,
It's
stress
not
reaction in our body.
helping.
No,
Yeah.
no.
And it
Well,
just doesn't have to be hard and stressful. It just doesn't.
as one of my guests said about something else, it's really simple, but it's
Yes.
hard
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's a
My
simple solution, but it's hard to get started.
Slender for Good clients tell me every week, this is actually easy.
I love that.
This is actually easy. But it isn't effortless at the beginning. It does
Hmm.
take this kind of, oh, I got to get out of my comfort zone to do this.
Hmm.
But it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be scary. I don't want people to be scared. It's not like dieting. Dieting
Hmm.
is miserable
Hmm.
and
Well,
ineffective and unsustainable.
well, it's you're depriving yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the way you're doing it in your program, you're actually almost rewarding yourself
Yeah.
with,
Yeah.
the most beautiful gifts we've been given,
Yes.
from the earth, from the trees,
Yeah.
what could be
Yeah.
better?
Yeah. I love how you get this. You're just like right there with it.
Well, yeah, had my own struggles, so
Right.
yeah. And when you get that clarity and you find something that really does work, you do want to share it with people who are
Yes.
struggling, especially because
Yes.
it does not have to be that difficult. Stop
Yes.
listening to the advertisements.
Yes.
Put the blinders on in the
Yes.
center of the grocery store. Just shop the periphery, and
Right. Yeah.
it's a
Pretty
lot
much.
easier. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We can do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Jenny, thank you so much for being on the show. I have loved this conversation. This is
Me
just
too.
amazing.
Thank you, Cheryl. I enjoyed it very much.
And you are welcome back anytime.
Thank you. Okay, when I get my book written, I'll come back.
Yes, you do. Just, send me an email and we'll be on it.
All right. Thank you.
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Oh my goodness, this has been such a fabulous episode. I really hope that you share this with
Mm.
everybody you know, especially, women who might be struggling, or maybe you're just approaching 40 and you don't want to be struggling. Just be proactive and start making some changes now. Knowledge is power. And
Yes.
Jenny
Yeah,
did the research for us. So
that's
let's
right.
just take advantage of it. And
Take advantage.
yes, we all want to be healthy, vibrant, and active, for the entire course of our lifetime. And
Exactly.
why not?
Yes.
Jenny's got the way, so give her, contact her and see what she has to say and see if she can work with
Yeah.
you.
Love to talk to them.
Excellent. And remember, shop the periphery, treats are poison, learn how to love your kale, and that is the way of the FemiNinja.